It's the evening, and I just got done watching One Fine Morning. Let's talk about it now. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watch or Pass, and today I'm going to talk to you about One Fine Morning, which is coming to DC area theaters on February 3rd, 2023. It's a beautiful drama that follows Lea Sedol's character, who is dealing with some of her own life issues, dealing with a lot that has happened, and trying to kind of like come to terms with it all. My hot take is, look, I think this is ultimately a rental or a pass. I think I'm leaning rent overall. Now, look, it's a beautiful film, and Lea Sedol does a really great job in this. And I also really, really love the music. It's kind of almost like a slice of life. It kind of follows her character through these different issues that she's dealing with and kind of watching her grow. But overall, the film is really, really slow. And I kept kind of asking myself, like, what is the overall message? What's the point of the movie? So that made it tough to kind of follow along, and also I didn't really love the ending, but I'm gonna go into that a little bit more. So ultimately, I think it's a rental. It's kind of on the borderline of a rent or a pass. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit more about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then go very briefly into the ending. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers in the ending section. If you don't want to know what happens in this film, I would turn it off at the ending section. But before that, you can watch and get my thoughts. I'll keep it vague up until then. So in One Fine Morning, you have Sandra, played by Lea Sedol, who is a widowed mother. She has a child, she has a career, and her father is also sick and kind of dealing with old age. And she is juggling all of these things before a choice encounter with an old friend, Clement, played by Melville Papad, causes some turmoil in her life that is coupled with some drama in her own family that makes her kind of deal with everything going on, that makes her reevaluate and reassess what she wants in life. So, things I liked about this movie. The first, the music. The music is beautiful. Like, this is I don't know if you can say like a classic Parisian film, like a classic French film, but there is a really beautiful classical soundtrack that fits perfectly with a film that is kind of set in France, set in Paris, and dealing with life and love and relationships. The soundtrack is beautiful and really kind of heightens the mood in a lot of the scenes. The second thing I love is Lea Sedol. Her character is great. Her performance is great. She has to kind of manage a lot of different emotions. Never really gets too extreme, which I think actually ultimately hurt the film for me. But she has to balance a lot, and her character has to convey a lot, sometimes just through her actions and kind of how she's looking at things. And Lea Sedol does a fantastic job in this. And the last thing I really liked, I like some of the themes. It deals with some pretty heavy themes in not too heavy of a way. It deals with like legacy, mortality, independence, and kind of people's various needs. But it does it very subtly. So I liked that. I liked that there were these kind of heavy themes that weren't heavy-handed. Now, things I didn't love as much about the film. The first is, look, it's very slow. The film progresses really slowly. I had trouble kind of paying attention at the start because just not much happens. I mean, it almost is a slice of life with a little bit of additional drama thrown in there. It really is just kind of like looking at Sandra's character and kind of how she is going through life and these changes that are happening, but they don't ever really seem that consequential. It's a drama, but they don't really up the drama that much. So that kind of hurts it overall because I kept kind of wondering like what is going to happen? Like when is the main theme going to happen? When is like the main conflict going to happen? And it kind of never really does. And that leads me to the second thing I did not love is I'll just call it like what is the purpose? Like what was the point of this film? I kept wondering like what is the underlying message? Where is like the aha moment or the revelation? Like what does this film want to say? And after watching it, like, I don't really have a good sense of it. I mean, it does deal with some heavy themes, but the film just kind of exists. It just follows Sandra's life and follows the issues that she has, but I don't really get the underlying message. There are some good things that kind of you can pull from her interactions and the things that she is kind of pushing for, but at the end of the day, the film just doesn't really feel like it has a ton to say. So I'm gonna go to the ending and some of the things that kind of made me not super interested in this film. As you can imagine, there will be spoilers right now. If you don't want to know what happens in the film, I would turn it off now. But if you want to keep going, let's go. So, like I said, Sandra is a widowed mother. She's raising her young daughter. She's kind of trying to do it all her own. And at the same time, her father has a neurodegenerative condition that is forcing him out of his home into a nursing home, like various nursing homes. And her father slowly kind of degenerates through the movie. He has some moments of lucidity, but overall, he becomes less able to do things, less able to kind of really recognize his family. He becomes forgetful, and they are also forced to kind of move him from nursing home to nursing home because they don't really find a good fit. Each time they go to one, there's something that's off, and so they keep moving him. But the weird thing is, like, they kind of imply that there's some drama with this, but each time they move him, there is not, like, it's almost like a administrative process. They say, okay, well, now you're moving here, and they like go and get him, and he goes to this new place, and they go and check it out, and like, oh, this seems okay, until some random person comes in, and it's a little disturbing, and then they like move him to a new place, and like, oh, this is okay. So even though there is that underlying drama of her father and him forgetting things, it doesn't seem to affect them that much. Now, on top of that, Sandra is runs into an old friend, Clement, who she then starts to have an affair with, and he kind of obscures some things from her at the start. She knows that he's married, and I think, he implied that him and his wife were separated and they weren't, intimate. But then, as the affair continues, he kind of goes back and forth. He, loves her, and then he can't do this to his wife and his kid, and then he comes back because he wants her, but then he's still with his wife and his kid, and so that causes some friction. And eventually, I did like this part. Sandra kind of almost gives him an ultimatum. Like, he keeps kind of leaving and then coming back, and eventually she says, like, I'm not going to be your mistress anymore. Like, you essentially have to choose, and she ends it, which is good. Like, the film, a lot of the movie deals with, I think, Sandra being needed. Like, she's needed by her daughter to take care of, obviously. She's needed by her father to take care of him. And then she's needed by Clement for, the passion that he gets from her, the romance that he gets for her. And at some point, she feels like she kind of gets a little more autonomy by pushing back on at least Clement. Like, she can't really push back on her daughter. Her daughter is a kid. She needs her, and her father has a neurodegenerative condition, and so he's going to like always need her as well. But with Clement, she can at least push back. Now, I'm not going to say that Clement was just using her. Like, that is one thing I actually did kind of like, is that the relationship did feel fairly realistic. Like, he had indecision, but he also wasn't just using her for sex. Like, he seemed to have a genuine interest in her. He had a genuine interest in her family. He liked playing with her daughter. Like, he felt like a good character for her life, despite the fact, aside from the fact that he was married and causing some more turmoil. So then, in the climax of the film, like, essentially they had to move her father out of the house. They try to get rid of his stuff. They give some books away to some people. Her father was a philosophy professor, and so his collection of books is kind of an insight into his mind. So eventually, as she's cleaning some stuff out, she finds this letter that her father had written, which is a really beautiful letter, and it kind of shows that he understood what was happening. He like kind of talks about how this is going to ravage his brain, and how it's kind of, it's especially concerning for him because, philosophy is his passion, and it's his kind of like pursuit of the mind, and his mind is going to become ravaged. So I thought that was a really nice scene. And then we also find out that she kind of gives an ultimatum to Clement, and we don't see a ton, but we do find out later, when she visits her father. They take him to a new nursing home, and she visits him with her daughter and with Clement, and we find out that they had just taken a trip to Italy. So it seems like he is now treating her, as number one. Like, he's taking a trip with her. It was him, his son, her, and her daughter. It's like a family trip. It feels like maybe their relationship is progressing. They're at this new nursing home for her father, and they all have this like caroling session. And so they come out to this group activity where everyone's around and they're singing this carol. And during this time, Sandra starts to cry. And I think it's probably because she's kind of seen where her father's going. He's went from she went from reading this like beautiful note about his condition, and then now he is like out here singing like a children's song, or like a little kind of song in a group session, and it probably is kind of a realization of where he is heading. But it doesn't really explain why she starts crying, but she starts crying. She wants to leave. She asks Clement, for them to go, and they kind of pack up. They tell her father they're going to go, and they leave this place. And then, they're like, what are we going to do? And they're like, oh, let's take a walk and go get the view from this lookout. So they go up to this lookout. They look out over Paris. They see some beautiful sights. and Clement is like talking to Sandra's daughter and it's like pointing out things and it's like saying, "Where do you live? Oh, it's over there. Where? What is that?" And then they're just kind of like sitting there looking out over this beautiful view. It's a beautiful day, and boom, that's the ending. That's the end of the movie. I mean, I think the implication is that they're going to be fine. I think the implication is that Clement is now like going to be part of their family, and Sandra's also choosing her own needs over like maybe some of the other people in her life that were draining on her. I think that's the implication. But again, the movie just kind of ends, and that's the film. So that's One Fine Morning. Check it out if you want to. It is a beautiful film. I just didn't really get that invested in it, and I didn't really stay that interested in it. But maybe I'm wrong. I sometimes am. Maybe I'm wrong. So let me know what you think. Let me know if I completely botched it or if you agreed. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.